I'd like to call the Winchester School Board meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. tonight. As many of you know, we have a busy night in town tonight. A lot of other meetings, and in particular, I know the select board is meeting tonight, and they have a couple matters that relate to the school. So we're going to try to run a pretty efficient agenda tonight, so we can get out of here and get over there and listen to the meeting as well. Do we have anyone for public comment tonight? I don't see anyone.
Do not see anyone.
All right. Well, then we will close public comment and move on to, do you have any remarks?
Just that we would ask that we come back to you with A on our consent agenda, the Ambrose playground in-kind donation. We have some additional information that we're waiting on that, and then just as we're kind of going through the agenda, would also would ask that we table or come back to 5D, which is the WPS goals. We had our big leadership group meeting yesterday. There was a lot of good conversation. Lori did an outstanding job facilitating, and we have some good data that came out of that we would want to help also inform the goals. So we would like to bring those back to you at your next meeting. So those two items we would ask that we do not take up tonight.
Great. So if there's no objection to the committee, we'll table those two items to our next meeting. I'd like to, as we get started here, welcome our new student reps. This is their first meeting. Ms. Jen and Ms. Sharawa. I'll be working on it. But we'll certainly invite you to say a few words, welcome to the committee. And I actually also want to say that we're trying to run things maybe a little bit differently than some other committees, other districts, et cetera. And so we've invited our student reps to participate as full members of the committee. So I know sometimes we're used to just having students come, give a report and leave, but we're hopeful that and invite them to be as active as they'd like during the student meeting, to the extent that we're allowed to have that participation. So I'll hand it over to you if you want to say a few words.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Hopcroft, for the wonderful introduction. I think it speaks for both of us. We're super excited to be your student reps for the next 2 years. Look forward to getting involved and getting to know you all and working alongside you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We are so excited for this year. And yeah, we had a couple remarks just to get us started. I work closely with Dot at the Winchester Coalition for Health. And we're implementing a couple programs of how not to be a bystander at the high school. We're introducing that through WIN speakers, and then we're also going to address nutrition and talks to athletes, because coaches are noticing more eating disorders amongst their teams. So that's just one point that we want to address.
Yeah. And also looking forward, Winchester will be offering the PSAT for sophomores and juniors on October 14th, and payments and registrations are due for that October 8th. All spots for sophomores are taken, but juniors will remain open, and this is the qualifying exam for the National Merit Scholarship, so all juniors are strongly advised to register and take this exam. I think that's all for right now. We're kind of still getting back into the swing of things in the fall, but we have some exciting things planned for a couple months down the line, so I think next school committee meeting we'll have some more info and updates on that. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yay.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right. So with that, we have. My screen, I'm not able to pull this up right now, but our next item is our consent agenda. As Dr. Hackett said, we're going to remove item A and address that at the next meeting. But I take a motion to approve the remainder of items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We will record your votes even if they don't officially count towards the results, but feel free to vote as well. Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to, with respect to the consent agenda, I just wanted to say a congratulations to Lily Swilling, who had received a student innovation grant from WIFI. She's a neighbor, so just exciting to hear.
Is that Plant the Moon?
Yes, that's Plant the Moon.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was very excited when I saw that too. I was like, gosh, Yeah, and plug the WIFI, students can apply for WIFI grants as well, so keep thinking about that. All right, moving right along. So the next area is reports, updates, and action items. And the first report is our 2023-24 personnel report.
Sure. So you have the personnel report was previously distributed. Ms. Kirby had put it together, and I'm sure she's happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. It was kind of an active year, active several weeks leading up to, and then even a couple weeks into the school year. So. And I don't know if you have anything you want to highlight with that, Ms. Kirby, or?
No, I think, again, the report speaks for itself. It has been very busy, and what I want to say loud and clear is that really working in this district and having the assets that we have, and we know that it's our people, they make the difference in all ways, and it's those connections that we're really working hard to further develop so that we can retain the talent that we're bringing on board. So we're excited by the many possibilities that lie ahead.
Excellent, thank you. Yes?
Question.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Kirby, the ESP openings that are in your report, that's not an insignificant number. Is that, like, what percentage is that of the ESP positions we have in the district? And is there anything, like, what's sort of different this year? I got an email from a principal shortly before the start of school encouraging parents who had interest, and I thought of you, and I thought that's a new twist on the homeschool connection.
Yes,
so,
it is.
But we have, I know of several parents who actually are in that role, and they love it, and they're great. What sort of, is there something different going on about that role, this year and compared to years past?
No, this is our position that is the most transient, and for a variety of reasons. In our favor, many of these, or several I should say, this year we've had 3 or 4 that were ESPs the past several years and then moved on to, lead teacher in the classroom. So it's that group that we really need to focus more on and be more thoughtful about the PD that we offer so that they feel supported and have what they need to do this very difficult job that they're being asked to do that they may not necessarily have the background to do when they first join us. So I think that's the big difference. I will say, Chris, what I feel much better, even though these numbers look the way they do, about where we are this year versus last year with ESPs. And I say that because a couple of reasons. One, you all were very supportive and negotiated a contract that was very competitive with other ESPs in the area. And that's made a difference in the pool that we've had. And again, some of the transitions are just natural. Life happens, people are moving, and yeah, for personal reasons, medical reasons, we had people leave. We have layers to this, and another big piece of it is just taking a look at how we write our IEPs and what do students really need, and really thinking about how we allocate those supports. So these numbers here are good data points of what next steps might be so that we can get closer to matching what students need.
And I'm glad you mentioned the CBA because I felt like that ended on a very positive note, so it's good to know that's not pushing people away. If anything, it's keeping people here or attracting folks. And thank you for all your support in that effort, too. So to the extent that we have some critical vacancies, are we moving ESPs from like elementary to McCall or McCall to the high school or what have you, or to the extent they've been based at other school buildings, have they largely stayed there?
So it depends. We have a combination, and depending on how the IEP is written, depending on the relationship that ESPs have with the students, does it make sense that they travel from elementary to middle school with a student? Sometimes that is the right answer, and other times it's good to have a new person.
Yeah.
So it's all of those questions that we ask ourselves as we're thinking about, how to best support the students. But we're not taking, and again, we have to think about the skill set people are coming with and where their passion and interest is. So we try as much as we can to match in that way as well, because certainly that will benefit the students. I will say this year has, number of Winchester residents that have come to the rescue, and I do say that, to really, they're so passionate. They very much want to give back to a community that's given so much to them. So we've hired many ESPs that are, people right here within the community. So that's
Great.
pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Great. Next item is the transportation update.
So I have to admit, I'm glad this meeting is today and tonight and not yesterday or last week or any other time prior to the start of school. Since the start of school, as you all know, and I have been, I think, communicating pretty regularly with you as well as the community, Andrew and I, we get a kick out of when people write us to the transportation department as though we have a wing somewhere in high school or at Lincoln. It's basically
What's your other
Andrew.
cape?
We do, well, yeah, I can't find it. That's been the problem. It's been a challenge. I mean, there's no question about it. And I think the challenge has been really for a pretty singular reason, and that is that we added an additional tier for Lynch students. We have over 330 Lynch students riding the bus to Parkhurst, which is fantastic. But that additional tier means that we've got one more transition within our bus transportation schedule that we have to hit. And so what we started out, and all we have is we have software that tells us what times the software thinks bus stops are going to happen and when the pickups are going to be. And then there's reality, right? There's the River Street shutdown. There's additional work going on around town. And also just the startup of school. I mean, students driving to the high school, great drivers, no complaints at all, but it's more volume on the road, parents dropping off, more volume on the road. Less people, I think, on certain days of the week are working from home now. So we run into all those things. And we started with really trying to make sure that we weren't picking up Lynch students too early. We did say no pickups prior to 7 o'clock back in the spring, but when we started scheduling, felt we could push that up. And unfortunately, we were not able to do that in the very beginning. We made a quick adjustment to that. The bottom line is we've added 3 buses to the road. That comes at a cost that we can talk about later. But there's just really no option for us to manage. Clearly, we have a responsibility, and clearly we want to make sure kids are getting to school on time. So the morning has been our real focus. We've got some work to do in the afternoon, too. But I am relatively pleased, cautiously optimistic, and hope I don't wake up tomorrow morning with my phone blowing up, regretting saying to you that today was as smooth a day as we've had. And it's been for a lot of work over the weekend and working with the transportation company. We had some hiccups, as they say, yesterday. Even though we had what we thought the routes were in place and the buses were in place, it didn't quite coordinate that way. But today, after continued conversations with transportation company, and they're working hard to make this happen, we had a relatively good day, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to evaluate the Lynch pickup times. Although overall, we didn't pick up any students prior to 7 o'clock, and I think the earliest today was like 7:07. Most of them were 7:15 or later, which I think is really the zone where we want to be in, and I think that's much more comfortable for people. Also, I think as we go through and we start to see some of the construction projects ease up, we might be able to also see some additional time coming back into the schedule that we can make some adjustments. But we're going to go through the next couple of weeks. We're going to see how it goes. We're not touching anything, and hopefully, things will continue to smooth themselves out. We have 3 new drivers, so they're learning the routes, although the routes are much more simple given the fact that we have split routes up to make the runs quicker. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I really appreciate both your support, and I certainly appreciate the support and patience of students. Of families. I absolutely recognize that it's not been awesome, and it's been very frustrating for everybody. And I can share that have been as frustrated as anyone. And so, but I think we're in a good place right now. And I hate saying that out loud, but.
Mr. Nixon?
I have a couple. Although I live in an area heavily impacted by the Eversource project, I have to confess, I don't go to any of the public meetings because I figure it'll be done when it's done. And I'm just living with it. What is your understanding from management about any key elements of the Eversource project and when they will be done relative to cold temperatures and snowfall, which is only going to put more cars on the road, and also during the school year, more high schoolers will get their license, and there will be more kids driving to Winchester High School. What is your understanding about? Do you have any specific understanding of
I do not.
congestion that will ease?
I do not. I do not.
I'm surprised you didn't throw the 40Bs in there too.
What's that?
I'm surprised you didn't throw the housing projects in there too, the
Well,
additional traffic there.
Clearly, I've done a good job. I didn't have to, right? It's in your head. My work here is done.
I mean, Eversource is, I think, from my perspective, just they have done a good job putting out updates as to what to expect, but I don't have a sense for any phasing of these projects that's going to have any impact on or make traffic better than it is right now.
And then we haven't talked much about busing for athletics, but given everything that we have changed for this year, has there been any feedback either to you or your peers? I mean, do buses show up when they need to be here to the extent we're moving kids to practices and we need a bus or competitions during the week?
I would have heard if that's not the case.
I was gonna say, I think we would have heard.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's different drivers, so it's not the same from during the day, so they pull from different resources. We haven't seen any issues with that yet.
It's still same company, though.
Same company.
Same company.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Talents, questions?
I want to appreciate, the families who have continued to advocate and then the work that Frank and Andrew have done in response, because that's the only way we can make it better.
Absolutely.
I think there certainly has been that improvement, and I think people appreciate that. And, I think just the assurance that we're going to keep working on it until it's where it needs to be. And I appreciate all the work that people have done, because it's obviously a challenge, and, we try to do it in the best way that we can. We're adding buses, which, is a cost, but I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm glad we're doing it.
And I appreciate the challenge that it was to add an entire other tier of busing, and to do that at no cost to the Lynch families, which I still feel like was the right thing to do. And I appreciate everybody else in the district who is also being patient with the fallout of us doing that for the Lynch families who need to come across town. So, Dr. Hackett, I only have one quick question about it. Supervision at the elementary schools, are we staffing and providing for that?
So,
Given I know it's not probably permanent, but given the surprises
well, I'll
with
speak
some
about
of the
Lynch
mornings.
separately, but I mean, because it wasn't enough to add the other tier, what we also did, and part of the reason why we did it is the last couple of years, we have been dropping kids off the elementary level way too early. Like, no supervision there, principals out front,
Yep.
trying to figure out how to supervise a group of kids that were getting off a bus. And it was we knew it was becoming an issue, a supervision issue, a safety issue. Principals just managed it and they did it. But one of our goals this year was to cut down on that and to
Right.
get those elementary tiers closer to when the school actually started. The elementary tier today was beautiful.
Spot on.
It was just really good. And so we really but we also needed that time to push back and to pick up
Right.
to get the Lynch Tier 1 run going. We have at Lynch, and because the drop-offs had been quite a bit earlier, we were having kids a couple days getting picked up at 10 minutes or 5 minutes of 7. We were having, we had to hire, and we are paying hourly rates for a couple people to provide supervision.
Okay.
We have no expectation, and the Parent Association of Lynch is all the parent associations are fantastic. They have been trying to help out and get people, just extra bodies there, which is helpful. But we have no expectation, nor are we taking a position that volunteers are really supervising the kids. We have paid
Right.
staff to do that. So as we continue to work on, the beginning of the day, end of the day, and if we can start squeezing those run times down, our hope is that we can kind of go from today, I believe, was it was pretty good. It was most drop-offs were 7:17, 7 into the 7:20s or so. The closer we can get to 7:30, even better.
Right.
So we'll keep kind of tweaking that, but we'll have supervision until that time, and
Yeah.
then we don't need it. And then, good questions that have been asked about what happens when we start getting into snow and everything else. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna leave kids out in the snow, so
Right.
we'll find some other ways to manage.
But we do have staff at the building, and any
Yes.
parent support is
Yes.
just,
It's just-
support, which we
absolutely.
always appreciate for
Absolutely.
things
Right,
like that.
Right.
Great, thank you.
I'll just say, I'm very appreciative of the bus ride app. And I love technology on the bus ride app.
Been a couple of days, I'm not sure I was all that appreciative of it, but.
I didn't really appreciate how well they built the software. I mean, they modeled it directly off of Uber with that thing that shows your car and then
Right.
spins for a while
Right.
and jumps back. and
Right.
everything.
Right.
But it gives you that same experience. But compared to when I was growing up, when you kind of went out there like a half hour early and you wondered if you already missed the bus and you're waiting. It's a much better experience, I think, having the app. And I'll say, as one of the Lynch families, my 9-year-old loves standing up in the back of the bus as it bounces around on an 8-minute ride. Decent time on the bus.
It's like an express train when we pick up the Lynch kids. It says right there. There's not much of a ride time for them.
Exactly, because they're half the time they'll be driving.
Right.
Anyway, good. Any other comments on transportation?
That's-
Great. So next item.
Yeah, student.
Sorry, Mr. Hopcroft. Dr. Hackett, thank you especially for the work that, all of you put in. I know it's definitely a lot trying to organize all the buses. As for the bus ride app, I know buses 9 and 10, I believe, some buses are not on the app, or some of them, I know this morning, were not accurate.
Right.
Will that be synced up soon?
Great question. So the new buses that we added, we do not have the GPS for yet. There's a lead time on getting that installed. We weren't anticipating to add that many buses, so Andrew Marin is working on that. Those will be installed as soon as we get them. So those buses will be active on BusRight. My experience with Uber, and I don't know who else has had experience with Uber, where it says they're going to come get you in 7 minutes. Well, if you really look at your watch, they're never there in 7 minutes, and then you can see them getting caught up like at a light, and then the car starts to spin like they're doing donuts in the middle of the street, which we know is not right.
That's what they're doing.
So, the app is a great tool, but like everything else, it's a tool, and it's dependent on technology, and it's dependent on cell service in Winchester, which, not to be critical of cell service in Winchester, but I lived in Maine, and I had better cell service in some areas than I have here. So, all those things factor in. So I think, parents or students who are using that app, just kind of doing that plus or minus and understanding, it might drop a bus for a little bit, and all of a sudden it shows up. That's just kind of the way it goes, but.
Sure.
Great question.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
You don't have to have a question, but if you want.
Oh, well, just thank you so much for your work. I babysit this family. I know they're having a little bit of trouble with the bus system, but they they're really happy just to be on the bus for that long too. They just kind of like riding on the bus like your 9-year-old. But yeah, thank you so much for your work on it.
As long as they're having a good time, Dr.
Absolutely. No,
Our work
that's good
here
to
is
hear.
done,
That's-
as long as
that's
the
good
kids
to
are
hear.
happy.
That's good to hear.
Great. So we'll move on. The next item is the Superintendent 2022-2023 evaluation. And to remind folks and for the community at large, the process we followed was that each committee member did their own individual assessment of Dr. Hackett and sent it to me, and I tallied the scores and synthesized the feedback into the final evaluation that represents sort of the culmination of the feedback from every member. I believe every member, or virtually every member, also shared their feedback directly with Dr. Hackett. Everyone has the summative evaluation in the folder, and I'm just going to go over some of the highlights on it. The first section of it is really about progress being made towards our multi-year goals, and the committee found that significant progress was being made in every category in that section. The next section assesses Dr. Hackett's performance against standards for instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. The committee found that Dr. Hackett to be proficient in these, in 3 of these 4 categories. And in this context, it's important to note that proficient is the second highest level and indicates a rigorous expected level of performance that is fully satisfactory. Dr. Hackett received an exemplary level of performance on the management and operations standard. And to be deemed exemplary, the committee found that Dr. Hackett significantly exceeded proficient and performed at a level that could be considered a model of practice for a regional or statewide level. I'll read the assessment summary just into the public record and for those listening tonight. But there was, a lot more to the overall evaluation. In the summative review of Dr. Hackett's second year as superintendent of Winchester Public Schools, the school committee expresses its deep respect and appreciation for his service. We have given Dr. Hackett an overall rating of proficient, acknowledging his exemplary leadership in various areas. Dr. Hackett has demonstrated strong leadership during challenging times, especially in the aftermath of the pandemic. He has demonstrated agility, thoughtfulness, and a capacity to address complex challenges. His ability to consider different perspectives and build trust in the agency within his team is a key strength that he brings to our district. As a committee member noted, quote, public education can be likened to a ship that turns slowly, and Dr. Hackett has provided steady, strong, visionary leadership as the district gradually steers educators, students, and the community towards a vision of individualized student success that girds students with skills for the real world, yet remains mindful of student mental health. Under his leadership, the district has made progress around instructional leadership in areas such as standards-based grading, data-driven decision-making, and assessment practices that utilize multiple qualitative and quantitative measures that align with diversity and equity principles. His commitment to empowering others and building strong relationships within the community has been noted as a key strength. Dr. Hackett's proficiency extends to management and operations, where he has excelled in budgeting, fiscal management, negotiations, complex projects, and modernizing operational processes. This review recognizes his many accomplishments, including negotiating contracts, managing construction projects, and handling staffing changes, among others. His approach to leadership regarding family and community involves empowering his team, emphasizing personal connections over email exchanges, and fostering transparency. Dr. Hackett's strategic vision includes optimizing operations, providing greater access to information, and promoting trust through relationship building within the school community. Despite administrative challenges, including staffing changes and office relocations, Dr. Hackett has built a strong professional culture and proven to be an effective strategic leader who empowers his team. His ability to create a culture of trust and respect among his leadership team builds greater agency within the district and yields stronger, long-term results. In summary, Dr. Hackett's leadership as superintendent has been characterized by his ability to adapt to challenging circumstances, develop personal relationships, build capacity, and develop a culture of trust and respect within the district. Personally, it's been a pleasure getting to know and work with Dr. Hackett. The committee looks forward to his continued collaboration and service in the years ahead. So that's the summary, and at this point, each member of the committee contributed to what I pulled together here, and I'd certainly welcome any members that want to share any brief comments or additional notes beyond what I've shared with you tonight. Well, maybe I did a really good job.
Can I make a public service announcement for our 2 student reps and anybody watching that we're required to evaluate the superintendent, and although our actual conclusion it really comes cumulatively from us, we're required to use a tool from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's a similar process that our administrators use with lower ranking administrators, and principals use it with teachers. And so in this way, the boss of the organization, if you will, enjoys the same treatment as everybody else.
Except he gets to do it publicly.
Except
unlike everybody else.
Yes, except it has to be public.
Sorry.
So, and every superintendent I've ever worked with tells me they're extremely uncomfortable when it comes time for this. But I wondered if I can put maybe Mr. Hopcroft on the spot for a moment, just say a few words about sort of the steps to get here. There was a self-evaluation that Dr. Hackett provided for us as well. And for my part, I would just say, I think there was a lot of, I was happy to see what I saw in your self-evaluation, because there are quite a few things for which you deserve a pat on the back. There are many things, actually, think you're very good about also identifying the things that areas for future growth, not only in your evaluation process, but you just in the conversations that you and I have and conversations you have with the committee. Very sort of humble in that respect, which I think is good for you personally, and I think it sets a good example for others. But I was really pleased when I went through your self-evaluation as I was beginning to think how I was going to approach this. My only comment, really, to the other four of you around the table as we think about moving forward. We did, others around the table will recall, I think it was during COVID, we thought hard about what the timing of this should be, and it's hard when we talk about the cumulative versus the summative. Might be good to go back and look at that in terms of the timeline and ask ourselves if that timeline really serves our purposes and the purposes of the district. The piece that I think it's been a challenge for us to actually do this. I think personally it's really important to have conversations with the superintendent around focus indicators early. So MASC has guidance that's the Mass Association of School Committees. So their recommendation to school committees is that we have that conversation with superintendents and we reach kind of a mutual understanding. My sense, I don't know that MASS shares that point of view, and often superintendents will say, these are the focus indicators that I'm choosing to use. In this instance, because of who we have in a leadership role in the district, I think that worked out okay. But I do think that's an important element maybe for us to talk about procedurally. Was not an issue in this instance, but I think it's good practice moving forward if we can find a way to make that happen, if the rest of the committee agrees with me. But anyway, that was more than I really meant to say, but nice job.
Thank you.
Dr. Hackett.
Thank you.
I was just going to comment that there was a part of this that felt a little bit like a 360 review. You had your self-evaluation, but I could see that each person on the committee brings such different experiences and sees your work from a different angle, and so it was really wonderful to see. And so congratulations.
Thank you.
I could have made a wordle of your summary at the beginning there, Mr. Hopcroft, which I think exemplifies a lot of the work Dr. Hackett has done with us in the district, which was challenge, trust, and respect. And I think that those three key values have been emblematic of Dr. Hackett's time with us and are really key in building relationships. So I thought it was really interesting to hear your summary of that, knowing that you had seen all of our evaluations of Dr. Hackett as well, to hear those come up a number of times in what you said. And I agree with you, Mr. Nixon, about focus indicators, but I think it aligns well in sort of this trust and respect in our goal setting, and that trusting Dr. Hackett to come to us with the ones that match well with the goals that we're setting with the district. I think that whole process that we're doing with strategic visioning and the meetings we've been having, that this has bled down into our committee as well, having a lot of trust and respect for each other too. So I think that it will fit naturally into that process. I think there's a way to do it that doesn't have to be an add-on or a whole separate big discussion. I think that, as we get to that goals discussion in our next meeting, I would expect that to come out as well.
Yeah, I would just lastly note that another thing that wasn't in the summary, but it's not like you just had like a couple things going on this year. I mean,
that's the challenge.
Yeah, pandemic stuff aside, settling the 5 contracts, all the building a new tier for Lynch, putting out the different systems. There's just a whole lot of stuff going on, and so even if there had just been a few of those things, I think you would have done a great job. But you were taking a lot of incoming at the same time. So anyway, any other input on?
If I could just say a couple things. Well, first of all, I appreciate the support of the committee. I appreciate the clarity of the committee. I appreciate the thoughtfulness of this committee and how hard you work individually for this school system, which people don't see anymore than they see what I do. But the amount of time each and every one of you spends outside of these meetings working on school-related issues, trying to do good things for kids and for the school community is just tremendous. And I've never seen it. I've never seen it anywhere I've ever been to a person the way that I've seen it here. And that's one of the many things that makes the school system very good and very strong, along with, strong supportive parents. We have great staff, and what makes me the most uncomfortable about this process is that I'm writing an evaluation that, in so many ways, I feel like is an evaluation of what we've done together. And none of this stuff, as you know, very, very limited amounts of these things do I ever do on my own. And it's only for really talented people from the central office, Ms. Kirby and Dr. Alanema, Heather Gary. I mean, we've really got strong district leaders. Andrew Marin, who's, you get a chance to see what Andrew does more than most, and stepping into that role. Peter Rowe, the last couple of years, being able to step into the finance position. That's what makes me so uncomfortable about it, is it just doesn't feel, I hate the personal nature of it, although I know that's the point, but it's truly, we have really good people. I hope that if it's anything that I'm able to do is really make sure that the right people are at the table and the right people are doing the right work, and that they feel supported in that work. So, that for me is always my number one goal. So I very much appreciate the support. I appreciate the comments this evening, and as Mr. Nixon said, I'm a pretty fair critic of myself, I think, and there's nothing you could have said tonight that I haven't already said to myself. I mean, I just never feel like I'm doing the great job, so I'm always trying to learn and do better. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, we're going to defer the discussion of goals to the next meeting. So our next item is discussion and consideration of early release days for staff training on the new safety protocols for McCall and Winchester High School on October 29th, and elementary on November 15th.
So just briefly, you have seen the new protocols. I love you guys. I'm getting better at saying it out loud. I really do like the program. Everyone who has seen it from parents, I did share with PISC the other night, really have commented on how simple and clean and effective and understandable it is. It is similar in many ways to what we've always kind of done, but I think the language itself is just more user-friendly. There's no code. Students will know what we mean. The posters will be everywhere, and we really feel the need. In looking back, the last full district training of staff that anyone can remember here was in 2018. So since that time, there's not been any full professional development of staff in and around any kind of safety and security protocols. I think the time is right. I don't love the fact that that I'm coming to you asking for early release days for this purpose, but the rollout of this kind of happened organically, the way it timed up with when the company themselves actually were offering training, and then Mr. Marin and Officer Ciccarello participated in that training in I believe in June-ish or so. And that was kind of partly just also, do we really want to go in this direction? So the decision-making around this happened post-calendar development and calendar approval. And what we're trying to do here is really, ideally we'd have a full day with everyone all together, but we also know that staff feedback has been very clear about wanting to be in their buildings for additional training so they can be in their own environment and they can have the benefit of that. We have a really strong and very active incident management team at the district level. As you know, each school building has representatives for that. And the training itself will be put together by this group. What we're looking to do here is the early release days for McCall and the high school, that October 29th date is a Thursday. The Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of that week is elementary parent-teacher conferences. So all elementary schools will have, go ahead.
The 29th is actually a Sunday.
Yeah, why is it the 29th?
So I was going to ask.
That's not right.
The 6th and the 9th.
Sorry. Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
26th.
It's the 26th.
It's the
Yeah.
26th, all right.
I should just-
Thursday, the 26th.
Okay.
So, thank you. I knew it didn't look right to me, but I didn't want to say it out loud unless I was hoping you wouldn't notice. So the parent-teacher conferences are that week at the elementary level. So the elementary schools will be out those 3 days. So that Thursday, what we're proposing is McCall High School would also have an early release day, so there'd be full day Wednesday, half day Thursday, full day Friday. And then we would be looking to pick another date for the elementary schools to do it. And as we know, when we get into November, we're into Veterans Day, we're into the election, we're into Thanksgiving happening, that's in the same time period. So November's always kind of choppy, and I kind of pick that date knowing there aren't any conflicts, but also just trying to keep it out of just a succession of no school days. So that is what we're recommending. These are not additional days to the calendar. These days count as student days. Just to be clear, we're not adding days to the calendar. These are currently full days that we're asking to go for early release. So that's the proposal.
So maybe we can start a discussion with the students. Are you okay with I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just wondering why this can't be incorporated into the days we already have planned. I can just speak as my district also adopted this year, and we've already started doing the drills, and we didn't need a half-day training. Like, it's literally what's on the poster. So.
Sure. So it's not just the training on this protocol. It's also our ACT protocol is in working with teachers on, what do they do if they're in a situation where there's someone in the building, and actively thinking about their classroom and asking questions about what would I do in this classroom. And the feeling of staff has been, and again, it's been 2018 since this has happened. They really want that hands-on experience, and they want to have time in their schools with people to walk through with them on all of these things. So I completely agree, Mr. Brady, that the protocols themselves are pretty self-explanatory, but I think we all know that there is a lot of angst and anxiety around school safety and school security, and I think that it is unfortunate that we're asking for additional time, but I think it's worth the benefit of it. I don't think this is something we need to do every single year. I see this as kind of a startup again, on top of the fact that we have so many new staff members that have been here since 2018. I mean, the staffing now and the number of new people that we have since that period of time it's been a lot of turnover. So that's the reason.
Lynch is an entirely new building, too.
Lynch is an entirely new building. And then in terms of the early release days, we're just very protective of that time for professional development, and a lot of those days have been already discussed and scheduled out. So we're asking for the additional.
I have a personal request. For any families for whom we had like IEP meetings or 504 meetings that were scheduled on these 2 days when school would have been in session, can the district make every effort to offer dates?
Sure, absolutely.
Prior, right?
Yeah.
And as opposed to saying, something has come up, we need to push it out.
Well, I hope in a half day there wouldn't be too many of those either.
What's that?
I would hope that since it's just a half day, that wouldn't be too many, because they should still be able to meet at the end of the day, right?
It sounds like it'd be even more.
It would only be a couple hours,
Yeah, it'd be
right,
a
that we're
couple
talking
hours.
about
Yeah, but I
covering.
mean, obviously, there are meeting
Yeah.
times in the morning that they're also taken by other families too. It
Right.
just, I would hate for this, I mean, I
Yeah,
understand.
no, I said I completely agree. I'm just saying it probably isn't going to affect too many families.
Can we give
so
up
it
a
should
day
be-
of the elementary conferences and do it that day?
That would be a contractual issue.
I don't understand. I mean, that's a time that they're there, so
It's in their contract.
I know,
It's
but
in their contract dedicated to conferences,
Yeah.
not to professional development.
I explored that option. as
okay.
well.
I appreciate that you already thought of it.
I also just want to say, we did check with WinRec and we checked with Kids Corner. They're fine to provide, they would be okay if these become half-days in terms of their ability to cover and provide childcare to the students that are already there. And I have no doubt that Kisboro, I don't know if we heard back from them or not, but that would be the one that I would know that would be absolutely a yes. The other two would be ones that we were just want to make sure we had locked in.
But club activities would not happen after school.
It's still just a half day, right? So everything that happens after school would
Very
continue to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my main concern is the elementary. The middle school and high school, they should be able to do what they need to do on a half day. The the kids, it's more the elementary. And
Oh, I
so
see. I appreciate
Kidsborough is, we haven't yet heard back from Kidsborough. Is there a reason they haven't gotten back to us, or?
Only because it was a short notice ask, but I mean, I'm confident they'll be able to do it. They're the most flexible in a lot of ways, and they are in our buildings.
Okay.
Do you need a motion? Or what are you?
Yeah, I would need a motion, because this is actually effectively a change in the calendar that you vote on and approve.
So I would make a motion to make early release days for staff training on the new safety protocol at McCall and Winchester High School for October 26th, and for the elementary schools on November 15th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I think you will need to message the heck out of this.
Going
Yeah,
to.
I was just,
Yeah,
that was gonna be the next thing I was
I mean,
gonna say,
leverage
Mr. Nielsen.
everything.
Starting
Queuing it up
tomorrow and
quickly.
every day
I
until
wanna,
then.
I want to have one more good day of transportation before I put this out.
We could start taking bets now on how many emails you're going to get on that day.
We'll get it out.
Okay.
Well, and it's a good thing the elementary is a little bit further out.
Right,
That's
Because
true.
the
Right,
McCall
yes.
and the high
Yeah.
school kids are a little bit more
agree.
self-sufficient.
Motion passed.
You can also tell the Chamber of Commerce.
True.
Mhm.
All right, so next on the agenda are future agenda items. We have the Lynch replacement project update on October 10th, and school improvement plans on October 24th. Did we add another? Okay. For some reason, my Google Doc here is different from the Google Doc up there. And facilities planning in the October-November timeframe. Upcoming meeting dates, October 10th, then October 24th. And,
Motion to adjourn.
that's it, yeah.
Can I make one other just
Yeah.
statement? We did actually get the detailed report on the Winchester High School structural study that, I told everybody was coming.
Yep.
Came in at like 12:47 in the morning on a Saturday or something last weekend. It's like 35 pages. So we have it. EFPBC is going to be discussing it next week. That it hasn't even gone out yet, but I'll be sure that it goes out to the school committee. So we can maybe put that on the agenda if folks have
October 10th.
questions. Yep.
Any other last minute updates before we go? Do we have a motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Strong start.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.